There was a time when knowledge was a pursuit. Now it's just a paste. There was a time when education was a human experience. Now, it appears to be a business transaction, with all of us contributing in some way. What happens when students no longer write and educators no longer read? When AIs speak to AIs and we all pretend we're still learning? This isn't fear to paralyze, it's fear to awaken. Welcome to the simulation of education.
Good morning, everyone, and I am pleased to host this special reflection where we hold space for the silent questions shaping our time. To understand the tension we're all navigating, we must begin at the root, the home. The families still doing their best to give meaning to a system they themselves were shaped by. So I spoke with a father, a man who loves his daughter deeply and who, like so many, is quietly questioning the world she's inheriting. Esteban, thank you for being here. As a parent, what do you think of AI in education?
I believe AI helps in many ways. It's efficient, powerful, and incredibly useful. But sometimes I wonder, maybe it's become a little too easy. Students don't always need to think as deeply as we did. They're not building the same kind of muscle, the struggle that shaped us. Still, I had to send my daughter to university, because for now, that piece of paper, the certificate, is still required. For the moment.
For the moment?
Yes, for the moment. I believe that soon it won't be enough. Certificates today still rely heavily on memorization and fixed criteria. And while that journey can build perseverance, AI shifts the focus toward rapid access, creativity, and exploration. Right now, though, society still values grades. Parents still want the best. I'm one of them. I just wanted her to get what I didn't, a better life, a comfortable life.
Do you have any concerns or anything you'd like to share?
Yes, I do. Because AI, it doesn't make things simpler. It makes the gaps clearer. It forces us to reflect on things we're not always ready to face. For example, what does it really mean to live comfortably? To have money, a car, a big house? But then what if you have no time or energy to enjoy any of it? Because of a job you got thanks to the certificate in the first place, that you now have to work to pay the bills. In all honesty, I wonder now if the life many of us are living, this tired, stressful life, isn't built on an illusion. One we inherited. One we believed and sustained, one we now pass on.
Would you say that deep down, no parent really wants their child to inherit their exhaustion, only their hopes? But what about those living it? The learners shaped by this new era, not through instruction, but through adaptation. I reached out to a recent graduate, someone who walked through university at the turning point of it all, to understand how today's students are not only surviving, but quietly redesigning their own rules. Gabriel, thank you for being here. As someone who has navigated life as a student, what do you think of AI in education?
I believe AI is the future. It's essential for any society that wants to evolve, but it's just as important to understand how best to implement it, not just as a shortcut, but as a companion for deep, creative thinking. Sadly, we weren't taught that. We just found our way.
Would you kindly share your workflow of using AI in your work during your university years?
Sure. I used large language models to break down the brief, identify key tasks, and generate detailed outlines based on the marking rubric, which I'd also upload from the module handbook to the system for better results. Once I had that, I'd prompt it to generate content with appropriate references, using citation tools to double-check everything, APA or Harvard style, depending on what the assignment required. Then I'd format the document to match the submission criteria. If formative feedback was given by my lecturer, I'd send it right back into GPT, get the improved version, and resubmit. I repeated this loop until I was confident. But now, with the release of agents, things would be even easier. These tools don't just give suggestions, they act on them. They build the whole product. Text, slide decks, mobile apps, videos, everything. In the past, I would have needed technical skills to do all that. Now those barriers are gone, and honestly, learning how to use AI well was more useful than half my modules. No one taught me that. It's something personal, like learning to use a mobile phone.
Do you have any concerns or anything you'd like to share?
Yes, I didn't write some of my assignments. Sometimes I was sick, sometimes the deadlines didn't make sense, and sometimes I was just tired. And when everyone else was using AI, I didn't want to fall behind. To be honest, I didn't even remember the topic, but I still passed. Some may say it's laziness, but to us, it's efficiency. Sometimes I wondered, what's the point of writing if I can get 75% in 5 minutes? What am I really being tested on? Will employers hire people who deliver quickly or people who take longer just to prove they tried? Because if I can complete an assessment using AI, doesn't that mean the job I'm being prepared for is already being automated? And if the university says I'm wrong for using AI, aren't they also wrong for charging me to prepare for a job that's disappearing?
That's a strong reflection. Would you like to share anything else?
Yes. My parents worked all their lives. They told my sister and me that it was to give us a better life. It's for the bills. It's so you don't lack anything. Eventually, they often didn't have time for my sister and me. And when they did, even as a child, I could feel their stress, their absence, even when they were in the room, and their exhaustion. What I saw, what I grew up feeling, was that a comfortable life isn't really about big houses or cars. Rather, it's about having the time and energy to enjoy being alive. And if technologies like AI or even brain implants can offer us that, then maybe, just maybe, we won't have to inherit the exhausted life they lived.
Would you say that, at least in part, your use of technology is not just about progress, but also a way to escape the exhaustion you witnessed in your parents, or to fill the spaces their absence left behind? And finally, the educators. Those still holding the front lines of learning, even as the ground shifts beneath them. One academic agreed to speak with me, not as an expert, but as a witness, to share what it feels like to teach in a system no longer built for teaching. Welcome, Heidi, and thank you for being here. As an educator, what do you think of AI in education?
I believe that AI is what we didn't know we needed, not only because it is extremely helpful, but also because it exposes things we may have tended to hide about education for ages. For instance, AI reveals how education has often prioritized rote memorization and standardized testing over critical thinking and deep understanding. We say we want students to think outside the box. However, a marking criterion itself is a box. If the marking scheme expects students to know tasks A, B, and C, what if the students have the knowledge and skills to complete tasks A to Z?
Would you kindly share how you make use of AI in your work as an academic researcher?
Of course, I use AI to generate lecture notes, assessment briefs, and even supporting materials tailored to specific learning outcomes. I also use AI to mark assessments and check references where applicable, aligning the output with the marking rubric for consistency. Once that's done, I use the same tools to generate personalized feedback for each student. Sometimes, though, I actually need to dumb down the AI. The output can be too good. For example, with multimodal large language models. When I input the link to a student's video project, the system doesn't just assess content. It can detect minute discrepancies in things like color grading or even a 4 decibel difference in audio levels between clips. Things I myself might never have noticed, let alone expect a student to. Now, with agents, It's even more streamlined. Instead of offering suggestions for me to act on, they handle everything: content, formatting, structure, visuals, emails, even multimedia elements, all built around the brief. It's not something we admit out loud, but most of us know more than half the work is AI generated. There are unfortunately no known effective ways to provide evidence. Therefore, we just accept the work quietly.
Do you feel that if you didn't use AI, you'd be left behind?
Absolutely. If I don't use AI, I burn out, especially because it's harder to grade AI-generated assignments than the traditional ones, because they're too good, too clean, too coherent. Sometimes I spend more time trying to find inconsistencies just to justify the mark than actually evaluating the work itself. If I give a high grade across the board, it looks like I'm not critically assessing. But when the submission is flawless, what exactly am I supposed to critique?
What is your personal view of AI in education at this stage?
I believe both students and educators have quietly outsourced their agency, and no one's really talking about it. The tragedy is AI gives formative feedback. Then students use AI to respond to AI's own suggestions. It's a cycle, one that runs on automation, not awareness, but it's efficient. And we've come to value efficiency more than engagement.
Do you have any concerns?
Yes, many. First, the imbalance. Some educators still don't use AI at all, while their students do. This creates a strange distortion. AI proficient students might appear more competent, even when the work is not theirs. And educators, they lose sight of who their students really are because AI masks the gaps that would have otherwise required support. Second, the denial. There are academics who deliberately give poor prompts to AI just to prove it's not ready. Then they celebrate its mistakes to feel superior. But the truth is, AI has already outgrown them. They just haven't caught up. Then there are the myths. AI hallucinates. AI isn't reliable. But these days, you can verify citations in seconds, use Perplexity, use Cite, use citation checkers. Denial isn't ignorance anymore. It's comfort. Third, publishing. We used to say publish or perish. Now it's prompt, polish, publish in 30 minutes. With tools like deep research and LLMs, a paper can be generated with references and polished, ready for submission, in less time than it takes to make coffee. We still call it research, but honestly, it's remix. And then there's the question of ethics. Yes, there are many discussions around it: academic integrity, authorship, accountability. But how can we build ethical guidelines on a foundation that is already unstable? It becomes a total loss of resources. For instance, how do we enforce academic integrity when there is no real mechanism to verify a breach? If it becomes about setting rigid limits on the use of AI, then we're solving the wrong problem. In that case, it would be wiser to invest in something deeper, to nurture values, kindness, integrity, fairness, honesty, because someone who carries those values will be far less likely to misuse artificial intelligence in the first place.
What are your thoughts on exams or live presentations?
They can still be valuable if we use them as proof of depth, not proof of survival. But often they remain rooted in memorization. And memorization is not understanding. Exams become rituals of retention, not revelations of insight. They measure who can survive pressure, not who can grow through learning.
Do you think institutions are doing enough to support students with AI?
That's a delicate question. AI is showcased at conferences, it's discussed, written about, and presented in academic circles. However, how it is actually used in practice may be a different story. In many places, students across disciplines don't have access to premium AI licenses. Instead, they're expected to rely on free versions of tools like ChatGPT, Claude, or Perplexity, which often come with limitations. Assignments are, in some cases, still framed to resist AI, not engage with it. Curricula often lag behind the pace of change. There's a global pattern emerging. Institutions that speak of AI with excitement in public spaces, yet hesitate to embed it meaningfully within their internal practices. Many institutions promote AI on stage, but restrict it in the classroom. Many say they're future ready, but then hand students the past. I sometimes feel, though I may be wrong, that rather than using AI to ease workloads and simplify systems, some institutions unconsciously provoke issues, difficulties, even burnout through archaic systems. Not because these are necessary, but to maintain an illusion of productivity and efficiency. The thing is, at the end of the day, time and energy are often fed into illusions that drain people rather than being invested in the simple things, such as giving time to family or oneself, things that would eventually energize us to give from overflow, not from exhaustion.
And do you believe it's too late for institutions to catch up?
We still show up. We still assign, submit. Mark, we invest, celebrate, solve, performance. The theater goes on. Many have stopped listening, including ourselves. This is not to shame, it is to stop pretending. Because if we could stop feeding a system that's already dying, perhaps we might finally begin building one that can live.